Okay, well, good evening to our viewers, if we've got any yet, on YouTube. We've just gone live there. I'm going to hit the record button and do an introduction, and then I'm going to hand over to Colin MM0OPX. So let me just do a quick introduction. Okay, very big welcome to Pennine Ham this evening and to our regular meeting. Can I just ask people that have come in the last few minutes if they wouldn't mind just putting themselves on mute? That's helpful, so that we don't have any accidental broadcast while we've got the meeting going. So a very big welcome to Pennine Ham. Delighted to have got us joined tonight by Colin MM0OPX. I know many of our members have read and seen lots of Colin's material, particularly what he's published on the YouTube channel, along with the excellent material he also publishes alongside that. So really delighted that we've got Colin here tonight. And as many of our club members will know, we are obsessed with antennas in this radio club, which is not a bad thing for radio hams to be obsessed with antennas, because without one there's not much we can do. Although of course there is the famed example of the American who entered a contest using a light bulb in his back garden as his antenna and made about 30 QSOs in a contest in the States at one time, allegedly. No, seriously, it's one of those things that I know in this club we are fascinated with, almost certainly because it's something that we can all have a play with. It's not too difficult to play with different configurations of wire, play with different configurations of transformers, of balance, and different ways of stringing up antennas, and have a lot of fun with doing it as well. And we're also delighted that we've got quite a few operators in the club here who enjoy portable operating, and we've also got those who enjoy chasing portable operators. And our most celebrated member is out there in the States, N4XAT, who I know is now well over the 3,000 parks worked, which is some remarkable achievement, mainly on CW, mainly on QRP. So Colin, I'm going to ask you to unmute, and I'm just going to hand the microphone over to you and let you take it away.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Nick, and good evening to everyone here on in Zoom and everyone else that's watching on YouTube. So yeah, what I'll do is I'll share my screen and hopefully we can get this to work. Hit this button. Present. Let's hope this is going to work. Hopefully you guys can see that.
That looks excellent.
You can't see. I take it you can't see the bar at the top. That's just me because I'm not a
No,
Zoom
I can't
user.
see the bar.
Perfect, perfect. So we're cooking with gas, I think. Okay. So once again, thanks for having me. I've not done as much preparation as I would have liked, and that's a little bit lazy of me considering the amount of notice that Nick's actually given me. So, but last couple of weeks I've put a bit more time into this. I'll just the wrong screen. Okay, so a little quick contents page. I'll go on a little bit about me. Why portable? A lot of my operating is portable, although a lot of those antennas I actually set up here in the garden. I'm going to briefly talk about just portable locations, radios that I use, the power for those radios, antenna support, so that's really fiberglass or aluminium poles, and then we'll get onto the bit that people will be probably most interested in, portable antennas, and a little bit for questions at the end. A lot of this will be familiar territory for you, so as I said to Nick, apologies if it's me teaching you how to suck eggs. Right, a little bit about me. So I'm originally from Fife, which is sandwiched in between a little bit of land that's sandwiched in between Dundee and Edinburgh, but I now live in West Lothian, so I've only moved about 30 miles, so I've not travelled very far from where I grew up. I still work in Fife. I work as a lead manufacturing engineer for in the hydraulics industry, and that's actually given me a lot of experience for actually building antennas, because it has given me a huge insight into basically materials and manufacturing methods. Although you see with my antennas, all of these can be made easily at home with DIY tools. I've been interested in radio for a long time. My cousin got me into CB when I was probably 11 or 12, and I was also a keen shortwave listener. Really did enjoy that. Once I got into working, I kind of gave up the radio for a while. So obviously got into things like, got into girls and cars and enjoying a beer or two. So the radio went on the back burner. But eventually I did come back to it, and in 2011 I just went through the whole lot. And in the space of 6 months, I went from zero to full. But and last point there, I don't have any radio professional experience whatsoever. Now, why portable? Where I live here in West Lothian, my garden isn't tiny, but it's not massive. It's about 10 meters by 8 meters, the main bit of my back garden. But obviously, it's a shared space with the family. And I've got to watch what I put up. So a lot of the antennas, I actually put them up temporarily in the garden and use them that way. But my main antenna is actually a 66-foot doublet. Um, Man-made noise. In fact, I'll just go back to the lack of space. At my old QTH, when I still stayed at home, I had a hex beam, but it's a little bit. I just don't quite have the space to put up the hex beam full time. Man-made noise. I don't suffer terribly with man-made noise here. I'm quite lucky in that regard. A lot of the people round about me are of the older generation, so they don't have too much electronics. But RF obstructions, I think this is something that people don't. Put as much consideration into. If you're in even a suburban area surrounded in houses, trees, that will have a detrimental effect to your signal. And certainly when I'm at home, I try to get antennas above the apex of the house. Just touching on locations here, and I've deliberately used the north coast and the south coast of the UK, and that's because even if you're in a nice saltwater location, you could have drastically different results with propagation, because propagation, the further south you go, the propagation's always better, and as Ken knows that very well, they're down there when he's working in Spain. So just because, but you can only deal with the hand you've got, but I think ultimately location is king. But as I say, I'm quite happy and I just make do with where I am. Now, radios that I use. So the 7300 is my 100-watt radio that if I decide to go portable. The Shack radio is still a Kenwood TS590S, which I adore. I had the 7300 in the Shack for a while, but it now just lives in a Pelican case, and it's a really light radio, the 7300, so I think it's good for working portable from the car. Next to that, obviously, the 705. I used to have a Yaesu 857D. I really liked that radio, but I ended up selling that and I got the 705 instead. And absolutely no regrets with that, because although it's only 5 or 10 watts on external power, it's absolutely more than enough, and it's a fully featured radio in your hands. And actually, my favorite radio of the moment is the QRP Labs QMX. I adore this radio. The switching, the CW switching, the QSK is delightful. I wouldn't say I'm a prolific CW user, but it is my preferred mode. And I've fitted the little Nicati's battery and audio shield inside this, so it's basically like an all-in-one radio. It's really good. Um, Quick, just touching on power. So when I got the 705, I invested in this Ultramax LifePo 4 battery. We're all well aware of these batteries, so nothing much to say about that. For the 7300, I then got an 18 amp hour Golf battery, and the beauty with this one is you can draw up to 25 amps, so that's really handy. So that's why I got that. It's got a USB socket in as well you could use for charging. But if I could recommend this, go for the 22 amp hour for no other reason than it's a little bit bigger. And on the right hand side, this is Big Bertha. So inside this, I've got a Fogstar Drift 105 amp hour inside the Max Pelican case. So I can draw up to 100 amps from that if need be. You see that there's power poles in the front of there. There's 4 sets of those wired up. I've got fast charging USB. cigarette lighter. I've got LEDs all the way around about it. So if I was going to go away for multiple days operating, that would be what I would take. Now, just before we get into antennas, I've got a little bit of a thing for fiberglass masts. I've probably got about 20 of these. Um, Now, the top two you can see on they are the Life's a Breeze, the 6 meter and the 10 meter. As far as I believe, I did check a few months ago, these are not available anymore. Life's a Breeze was a company that sold windsocks, and they did a number of fiberglass poles where they placed one order a year. They were delivered in March, April, and they sold them throughout the summer to people that wanted windsocks. And once they were sold, and then they wouldn't get any more until the following year. But I believe that the owner of that company is just slowly winding down the company and decided to stop importing these from China. These were really inexpensive. The 6 meter was £26, and the 10 meter, I think, was £50 I paid for that. And these are effectively spider beam antennas, just a little bit, I would say, marginally thinner walls. But to the untrained eye, you wouldn't notice a difference. They're mini spider beams, so quite heavy duty. You can use all the sections of them. Then we've got the Spider Beam, Old Faithful, the 12 meter. I've actually got two of these. Not a lot to say about those. Fantastic. You can put all sorts of antennas on these, from running a wire up to it to putting RG213 coax up it. And if you take a few sections out, I've even had a 20 meter Moxon on that Spider Beam. Below that, the DX Commander 12.4, very similar to the Spider Beam, ever so slightly longer and ever so slightly thicker walls, but there's really not a lot between the two. And on the bottom there, this is my Wimo 11 meter mast. These were originally made by E8 Antennas, which the brand was taken over by Wimo. Pretty simple. I take the top section out of it, and I can use, get 10 meters from that. And I would put sort of a hex beam on it, rotate it at the bottom, or put a Moxon on it. So it's just for those slightly heavier duty antennas. And then get into the more compact side. If I'm going to go sort of just a little bit of backpacking, one of these is the two I would take with me. I would either be my DX Commander Expedition, which is ideal for just throwing a wire up it. It's probably my favorite antenna for that. Really nice and light. I do take the top section out of it, so I think we're probably about nearly 9 meters I get with that. And then the Spider Beam 10 meter. Cracking antenna again, it's just heavy, but you're not going to get one without the other. And my only gripe with spider beams, as you can see, that they get cracked. So the rubber caps that come on them, even when they come from the factory, I wonder if anyone else has noticed that they crack very, very easily. So I do need to replace that on both that and my 12 meter poles. Right, we'll get to the bit I think where everyone's wanting to talk about. So and we'll get onto antennas. And this was the antenna that really kicked things off for me, going heavily portable. So this is a Just-A-Wave. So yes, there is a commercial variant, I would say, similar to this, and I did discover this commercial alternative when I was actually in the middle of developing this. This antenna was probably about 18 months worth of work. So quite simply, it's just a quarter length vertical. There's nothing magical about it. But I wanted an antenna that I could use in my garden. I could put up and down. I could use it on 80 meters, and I wanted to use it with a 12 meter spider beam pole. So on 60 and 80 meters, I linear load it. So there's quite a big space in there. I've put some lines on the picture there because you can't see the very thin stainless steel wire. And the same with the radio. The radio can be linear loaded if needed. It's manually you could adjust the length manually via some fly fishing reels, so it's monoband at any one time. It covers 80 meters through 4 meters, and if I put a balun inside it, a 1-to-1 choke, it would cover down to 2, but the performance on the VHF is going to be pretty poor. As I talked about, there's a single radio. You can ground mount this, and it's QRO capable. I've run my ACOM 1000 through this many times without any issue at all, and taken this antenna portable many times. It's only takes me about less than 10 minutes and I can have this set up. And that includes putting up obviously the fiberglass mast. If it's not that windy, I'll just actually mount it at the bottom, like you can see it in the picture there. But if it's a little bit windier, I'll guy it up at the 7 meter section, like Spiderbeam recommend with their poles. And as I said, it's standard. It fits to a Spiderbeam 12 or the DX Commander 12.4. And it utilizes low-cost fly fishing reels that I was managed to source here in Scotland from the Glasgow Angling Centre. If anyone that fishes, they know how expensive fly reels are. So I was lucky that I was managed to source these. And all other parts are off-the-shelf industrial parts that should be sourceable anywhere in the world. And you'll see that with all my other antennas. Some close-ups of the antenna. On the left-hand side, you can see the version that has the choke in it. This is an FT240-43. I see there's an SO239, and the coax that's used on that, it's not RG58, but it's RG142. So you can handle up to about a kilowatt of SSB with that. You could put two of those cores together, wrap it, and you could take a bit more if you wanted. You can see the reel arrangement there with these fly reels. So I'm not using the whole reel itself. I'm just using the spools because it came as a package. It was a reel and 10 spools. So I just use the spools, a slight modification to them. M6 bolts, which goes right through them. Simply, there's some washers there. An electrical box. You could see the clamps, the rubber clamps. These are like hydraulic clamps, but these ones are made of rubber that just clamp onto the Spiderbeam. There's a little swing bolt here. This is for the radio. You could see the radio connection here. The wire's quite interesting because I agonized over the wire for probably months and done endless research and then coming back to this. So in order to use this antenna, you need wire that's conductive on its outer diameter. Now, there's not too many wires that are like that. If you try to use a wire with insulation on it, you'll just have a massive bit of lumped inductance here and it won't work. I actually had some, I think, I can't remember what it was, but anyway, I made that mistake early on. This was back in 2019. I built this antenna. So I ended up using a 1 mm diameter stainless steel wire. It's 49 strands, 7x7. And the losses compared to copper, I think it was something like 0.4 of a dB. So it's really not noticeable. It's not going to rust this stuff, and it absolutely works a treat. So if you're kind of worried about using stainless steel wire, I really wouldn't be. That's my advice. At all the quarter wave lengths, you could see that I've got this is glue lined heat shrink. So I've got these as markers and a little color coding system. So you just wind this out, loosen off the other reel. Loosen this one, loosen off the slave reel, and just wind it in until you get to the band marker, so it's level with the center bolt, and then just tighten it up, and it makes things a lot easier for tuning. The bottom's just exactly the same. Depending on what type of ground you're over, or you really want to keep this above the ground, because the closer you are to ground, you will get effect, and then you might need to just loosen or just extend or just retract the wire just a little bit. Here's the antenna actually set up in my garden. Ground mounting it, I think it can be good as well, because if you ground mount it, you can actually add another wire. You can see this little blue wire here. So this is now acting like a fan vertical. So for example, you could have, in my very small garden here, I could have 80 meters linear loaded, but I could also have 40 meters set up. So I could set this up one evening, and I could work into the evening when all the family's away to bed and have a play on the lower bands. But I would just say use lots of radios. Probably don't need to cover that. At the top of the antenna, you could see the top spreader, a little plate in the middle. Again, using these little plastic or rubber clamps. I've just removed the top section of the Spiderbeam, and I think this one's 12 millimeters. It just slips over it nicely. You don't need to loosen these cap screws. Once you've got them set, you could just pull your standard 8mm tent poles in and out. Little hole through the ferrule of the tent pole, and these are little kite pulleys, and we just run it up and through. So it looks a lot more complicated than what it is, but there was a huge amount of thought that actually went into this antenna, and I still use it from time to time, but with having such a selection of antennas, excuse me, doesn't get quite as much use. Okay, I'm just wary of time here, so got a few slides yet. Hex beams, specifically the G3TXQ, which is the wideband hex beam. I think Steve called it. I had a commercial one of these, as I think I mentioned earlier here. That was made by Waldy SP7 IDX, which is a heavy duty one. I ended up selling that, which was maybe a mistake, but I don't think it was, because it actually kind of pushed me to actually build my own hex beam. Because commercially built hex beams, you're still talking 5, 6, 7, and there's one in America that's a lot more than that, but it is a lot more heavy duty. So I decided to build my own. So not reinventing the wheel here, but I have put my take on it. Um, when you go to a beam, especially when you go to a beam for 20 meters, that my opinion is that's really when you make a massive difference, especially when you're in a suburban environment. Different if you're over salt water, but inland, if you're using a ground mounted vertical for 20, and then you put up a hex beam beside it, there is a noticeable difference doing A/B tests. So they say you get around about 3.5 dBd of gain, but I think it's actually more than that in practice. I've said it's inexpensive to build this. I'll cover that in a minute. You still need to spend some money, of course. It's suitable for light, uh, I'm saying light GRP or aluminium, but you get these fiberglass masts. I would like one, but they're quite expensive, from the likes of Moonraker, and they're more than heavy duty enough for these. And obviously they're QRO capable. I like to make my antennas high power handling where possible, just because I've got an AECOM 1000 here, and if I want to run a little bit of power time to time, I can do that. And I have taken the AECOM portable time to time as well with with a petrol generator. So this is my 20/10 version. I didn't add 6 meters onto it. So the measurements were crudely as per K4KIO. He's got a great build a hex beam website. So I used the measurements to get basically the positions for where the bands, each band connects to, and the height of the spreader. Sorry, yeah, the height of the center post, I should say, the length of the arms, but I did tweak them. Now, if you've seen any of my videos, I do have links to my Google Drive, and I've got all the dimensions for these. So if you want to build this, the full bill of materials is on there. On this, I've just used a standard aluminium center post, and I'm using coax jumpers. I think these are actually RG8X jumpers, just connecting. You need to make sure that that's 50 ohm. That is critical. For the wire, I had lots of these reels left over, so I actually used stainless steel wire again, which worked a treat. The base plate here is just a simple, I think they call them aluminium circles on eBay, aluminium discs. So you can buy these. This is a 200 millimeter disc from eBay. You can buy these really inexpensively. And I actually made a template. So on the Google Drive, there's an A4 template. You simply print that out in 1:1, cut it out, stick it onto this plate, and you just drill the holes, what it tells you to drill. So you've got M6 or 1/4 mil holes to drill for these clamps. And you've got this, I can't remember what you call these clamps, but these I think there's like shaft clamps you call them. But you can buy these on Amazon really cheap, or if you go to AliExpress, you could buy them for like 50 pence. They're so cheap. So I've got one of these top and bottom, these clamps, and these just clamp to the center post. Once you get it dialed in, it's literally plug and play. And I can set this antenna up. If the mast's up, I can set this up. I think I've timed myself 18 minutes to do this. This 20/10 version, for the cost of the parts, was about £170, but that's buying everything. Obviously, if you've got a lot of stuff to hand, you can shave a bit off of that. These poles are, I think these are 11.5 millimeters. I did try the smaller ones, but they were just too flimsy. I then made an evolution of that hex beam. If you look at a hex beam, you can see how big it is. And I know people that have bought hex beams and they've ended up selling them because they see what 20 meters is like on it. It's still a big antenna. But if you take 20 and I've taken 17 off, and you're just left with 6, 10, 12, and 15 meters, you get a really small compact beam antenna that's only about just over 3 meters in diameter. So really small and really light. So, I mean, the lessons learned from making the bigger one, I put into this. I mean, I tried to make my antennas as professional as possible from using this mass strand wire, these stainless steel S hooks with the heat shrink on them. Again, I was able to use a smaller aluminium disc. This is 150 mil in diameter. Use the same clamp, the center post, but you'll see that the center post is fundamentally different. I didn't like using the coax jumpers just because I didn't think they looked that neat, although there was nothing wrong with them. And I thought, okay, over time, although they were sealed with liquid electrical tape, I wanted to use something a bit more weather resistant. So I came up with this strip feeder idea, and I simply got this idea from ladder line parallel feeder. So I knew if I got the dimensions right, I could get a 50 ohm feed, and that's exactly what I did. So I trolled the internet and I found a calculator, an online calculator for strip feeder. Um, and I think it's actually used on circuit boards, and it's quite common for that strip feeder. So anyway, I was able to use a 3/4 inch aluminium strip. I think it's 1.6 thick. So what's that, 16th of an inch, something like that. Um, and the gap in the middle, funnily enough, which is critical, just happens to be the same thickness of these bars. So if you take a 1 meter length of this, cut your two strips, you can use the piece that you have left over to use as a gauge. So this actually gives a perfect 50 ohm feeder. And that's what I did. You feed a hex beam from the top. That's the way that you do it. So you can see that I've actually connected it through the two bolts. And connected to that, I've got a QRO choke again. I've got some type 43. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5. I think I meant to have, I should have probably had one more, but there's 5 type 43 beads, and this is RG142 again. So again, this is QRO capable. I think this antenna was only about 3 kilos. I don't have this antenna. I have all the parts to make another one. So a friend of mine was looking for something to take on a DXpedition. So he actually took this very antenna down to the Gambia, and he used it down there too with great success. Absolutely loved it. And he actually went with some seasoned DXer, so I'm really glad that it actually got put to use. But I actually have a lot of it built, and I just need to get it finished. Right, I'll move on to Moxons now. I think everyone knows what a Moxon is. Actually, I looked up a little bit of the history. I don't know exactly when Les Moxon, because I couldn't find a source, but I believe it was popularized in a 1982 book, funnily enough, the year I was born. Um, quite, it's less inexpensive than a hex beam, but the downside is it's traditionally monobanded. You can multiband these, but I did try it, and it was more complex than what I wanted to get into, and I thought the hex beam was just an easier option. You get slightly more gain marginally with the Moxon, but you get slightly better front to back. Although I think you still get 20 plus, and I've measured 20 plus on the hex beam. The front to back is much better. Obviously, you fold in the ends, so you're saving about 25% on a full size 2 element Yagi for the width. It's typically a 50 ohm match, but you should obviously add a 1-to-1 choke. I've got a little bit of RG316 typically, and I just then put the choke on the mast. And you could actually use these on very light masts, which I'll show you. And again, they're QRO capable, but it'll just depend what you use for your little jumper coax and what you use for your choke. Now, going back some time, this is my first Moxon I made was actually one for 20 meters, and it worked really, really well. But I haven't used it for a long time, and I've just used the parts for something else purely because I have the hex beam now. But it worked really well. I mounted it up at, this is wide angle lens, but I mounted it up about 6.5 meters. which is less than ideal, but I put it on a 12 meter spider beam, and it worked absolutely fantastic. So I used a piece. I think this is aluminium composite panel, I think they call it. Basically, it's plastic with a little bit of aluminium either side, top and bottom. So I suppose you could use that for a capacitor. Um, the masts that I used on these were wind jammer, 5 meters with one section removed. But I've since moved on to the tent pole design. Funnily enough, I did try tent poles for the 20 meter moccasin and it failed miserably. So that's another story. But this antenna did work, and it worked well. But it does take up more space width-wise than a hex beam. Fast forwarded another couple of years, and by this time we were well into solar cycle 25. So 10 meters was starting to wake up again, especially through the winter with North America almost every day. So I decided to make a moccasin for 10 meters. Now this is a really compact 10 meter moccasin. You could see the measuring tape on the bottom there. It's just a whisker over 2 feet. Really, really light. I used these hydraulic clamps again, but you could see that I've got a bolt through the middle of these, and I've used basically made an X, and that's to get I can't remember, I think it's 40 or 42 degrees it works out to for the moccasin. So I used a little bit of CAD, and I managed to get a little jig to actually drill these aluminium tubes. And this actually self-constrains itself. So when you actually fit it to your mast, it goes rock solid. And then all you need to do is then just slot your tent poles in it. These are 8 millimeter tent poles. You just slot them in it. The tent poles they have the shock cord. You can buy these spare I think they're tent pole replacement kits, and they actually come with the shock cord. I used a little piece of plastic just at my feed point, RG316. But curiously, it was a little bit floppy. So once I got it all set up, I actually constrained it so you could see this little copper ferrule. And once again I used the stainless steel wire because I had a reel. I think I had a 500-meter reel, so I used that. So again, I can throw this antenna up literally 2 minutes. If the mast's up, 2 minutes, and this is up and it's on the mast. This mast here is actually the 10-meter Life's a Breeze mast, and it's up about 7 meters, pointing towards North America. And I just used this antenna the other month, working great. Moccasins can have quite strange SWRs, but it's not bad. SWR is something I really don't fret about. As long as it's under 2 to 1 and the SWR curve looks about right, which this is a typical moccasin curve, I'm more than happy. And you can see that I'm covering the whole band there. Quickly on 15-meter version. 15-meter version was identical. I built it. You can see the two kits there actually together. I built it. I used it once with my 705, and I worked one QSO with it, 5 watts. I worked Victor 26 Echo Italy. A lot of Irish guys. So I had one QSO, then it's went away, and I've not actually used it again since. Right, the end-fed half-wave. Some like them, some love them, some absolutely hate them, some are indifferent. I've done a fair bit of experimenting with end-fed half-waves. It was an antenna that never interested me, but I got curious because of the insertion loss, the losses that we actually got on the cores. A lot of the work that Owen Duffy and others have done. But to that effect, I actually just came up with 3 versions for myself. So there's a QRP version here that'll handle up to about 20 watts SSB. My favorite in the middle here, which the 1002 core, this core has now taken over from the FT240 43. And it's really good to see that. You can have efficiency from this core over 90%. And a lot of people have done this, so I don't think there's a lot of argument with that. I'll come back to the arrangement here, spool arrangement in a minute. QRO version here. So somebody was asking for a QRO version, and to be honest, I've only used this antenna a couple of times. But this is the oops, jumping back there. So this is 3 cores of FT24053. This is some 2mm enameled wire wound as an auto transformer. Again, we're getting about 90% efficiency on that, and I've run this with the ACOM. I have put it up to it's and it takes the power. I've put it up to just shy of legal limit, and it handles it just fine. In the middles, which is my favorite, this is I modified this end-fed half wave to become like an adjusty wave, and this is the antenna that I actually spoke to Ken on, and Ken actually gave a shout for some DX, and this is the antenna I was using. So we spoke to a few guys when he was down in Spain, and we spoke to a few guys over in the States. So this was the antenna, Ken. Um, my latest end fed, which is this random wire. I was actually away on holiday for the October holidays. This path in the background here is the Southern Upland Way. So this is just ladders actually in the background. So I was just off the Southern Upland Way, obviously a Potter reference. So knowing that I was going away, I came up with this little end fed. They're not really random, but we say that. So it's 29 feet, and on the counterpoise, it's 16 feet. So I wanted to use this with my QMX Plus and this little Kanga Kits Transmatch there. And I just run the wire up the DX Commander, and it provides, it's not going to be the most efficient, but it provides me with operation 80 meters through 10, and I can tune it up really quickly. Sorry, match it up really quickly. Top corner here, I did some experimentation and I settled on basically a 7-to-1 auto transformer. The one on the right was an 11-to-1. I could have went with the tri-filler windings like we typically see on 9-to-1s, but this was just simpler, and really the losses that were involved, it was just much more simpler. And these little PCBs I had made, so these were just like really cheap from GLPCB, and I can just mount, build these antennas, these transformers to any configuration I like. But the positive is I managed to make an activation 2 days in a row that I went out, and I did manage to work some guys over in the States, so it definitely works. So we're getting near the end here. I'm just watching my time here. 5/8 wave verticals. So one that a lot of people will kind of be familiar with, especially from CB. So I wanted to give this a go, but I did it a little bit more unconventionally. I did it with an LC match. So basically just using a little coil of wire and a bit of RG142 coax for the capacitor. And in the bottom here, you can actually see a screenshot from formerly SimSmith, but Sim NEC. So obviously it's only monoband, but a great antenna. I've actually made one for 17, and then I made this one for 10. Actually, I tell a lie. This is the 17 and this is the 10. It was that long ago I put these slides together. This was the two matching units. Not really much to say. They're raised verticals, but they work really well. But curiously, with this type of matches, you get a really narrow bandwidth, more than enough for your band, but it makes for a really quiet antenna, which I found really quite interesting instead of using a more traditional match for 5/8 wave. And then this is the last one. Last slide. So a couple of years ago, if anyone's seen my stuff, I had to play about with phased verticals, specifically spacing them an 1/8 wave apart, which was really interesting because you could put these in a small garden. I had some good success, some failures as well. These two, this relay box and the switch box, these are what I have already, and they worked well, but I certainly learned a lot of lessons. This is the Chrisman method of doing this, but I've got enthused in the last couple of months. So I'm actually in the middle of building or rebuilding with custom printed circuit boards. So these circuit boards here, I actually have some prototypes on my desk here, but I'm going to order some ones with some refinements in them over in the next week, and then hopefully over the next month or two I'll actually start building the phased array, and that'll be another antenna to kind of add to to the portable antenna arsenal. Okay, so that's our slides. I've waffled for quite a long time here. So yeah, so I'll hopefully that was all understandable. And I'll put it back to you, Nick.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much, Colin. I don't think there was much waffling in there. An awful lot of information you came across with there. So thank you very much indeed. Just before we throw it out to questions from the floor, we've got quite a few people watch us live on YouTube. Some of them know you as well, Colin. So we've got Darren M0DCX. We've got M8KHC. We've got Daz. Oh, apart from Daz, we've got Stu and James. So they all wanted to come and just say hello to you, Colin, and obviously enjoying your live talk tonight. I've given them the opportunity on YouTube, by the way. If any of them want to ask any questions, just type it into the chat box there and I'll put them through to you, Colin. So let's go to the room first of all. Who's got a question to or a comment to make on the presentation from Colin? Who wants to go first? If I don't see you immediately, just unmute yourself and go ahead. Yes, go on, Howard, GM7ESM.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you, Colin. That was very good. And I've not seen any of your YouTubes. I shall now go hunting for them. But my only comment would be that I've spent the last 20 years working for the Camping and Caravanning Club as a site manager, a peripatetic one with a large motorhome. And it's amazing what you can do with, as you say, with a piece of wire and a fence. When I hear people saying, "Oh, we need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do this," to get out and that, I keep thinking, no, you don't. For a long time, my basic antenna was one of your plastic flagpoles, with a 10-meter one with a wire up through it and counterpoised against the caravan, using the caravan as a counterpoint. And I worked it from Spain. We used to go down to Spain for the winter. Absolutely no problem. I worked all over the world with it. So I still get confused when people say, "Oh, I must have a this, I must have a that, and I must have a this to be able to do anything." As you've just explained, it's so simple. You don't need a large wallet, and I just have great fun with them.
No,
So thank you.
no, yeah, I agree. I mean, I think a big part of the hobby for me is I just enjoy building and designing, the designing and building, and I kind of float from project to project, but I'll take it to the point where I'll really, I'll design it and then I'll use it a few times and then I move on to the next one. But I mean, the last antenna I showed you there with that, it was a bit wire up a pole and really, really simple, and I was amazed. Okay, I put myself on the POTA site, spotted me, and there's all these stations from the States coming back to me. It's just amazing. And I'm thinking 29 foot of wire up there, nothing more.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
a lot of fun, a lot of fun.
yeah.
Of,
Great
of
fun.
course, of course, you've got to stack the odds into your favour. It was. I was lucky more than anything, but when I looked at the grey line, it was grey line morning on 15 meters, and that was just the right time to work. So we stack the odds in our favour, don't we?
Yeah, yeah. Great stuff.
Yeah, Colin, our secretary, Rachel M1AYG, was unable to join the Zoom meeting, but she's been telling me she's been watching on YouTube and just wants to say hello to you because I know she was one of your early purchasers of your Adjusty Wave, and I think I said this to you when we chatted a couple of weeks ago that I've been up in the field with Rachel with that antenna, and everyone enjoyed looking at it and enjoyed the build there. It's a fabulous little antenna and worked extremely well. So thank you, Rachel.
Yeah, Rachel's lucky because there's a very finite amount of these. I spent I wouldn't like to think what I spent developing that antenna, so it certainly helped to get some of the R&D costs back. But yeah, it's been a good antenna to me. I've enjoyed using it, and I've enjoyed the process of developing it.
Good, thanks, Colin. Right, anyone else with another question or comment to make to Colin? Yeah, Keith, M0KIL.
Hi, thanks for the talk, Colin. I've followed your YouTube channel for a year or two and quite impressed by all the work you've done. But there's one question, I don't know if you've actually looked at it. You said on the NFED, on the transformer, it was 90% efficient. Now, the normal assumption is that the 10% is lost in heat or other things.
Yeah.
But the one I worry about is harmonics. Have you checked for harmonics?
You're right, and the question is no, Keith, but you're right. I have heard that, and I had an email about that, and no, I've not. But you're right. There's something in that.
Right. The second one, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Keith. Yeah.
I noticed on the you used the bulkhead SO239, bulkhead mounted SO239. I bought some from a manufacturer recently, and there's a problem. The center socket pin actually rotates. Now, if you're putting a coax into it, connecting a coax in, which is clamped to the shell, then you can actually twist the actual center off with prolonged usage. I've had this with the plugs, and it's a problem. And you've got to look very carefully at the manufacturer. Some are fixed and some aren't.
No, that's a good point, and I've certainly not noticed on the ones that I've had, but that's not to say. But that's a good point, Keith. That's something definitely worth checking, because that's the last thing you want, and then it's snapping it off on the inside, and then you wonder what's went wrong.
Yeah, it happened to me. I was checking my equipment for Mills on the Air, and found one of the cables wasn't working, and traced it to that. And then I had to replace all the plugs.
Yeah, you would have to do them all because you wouldn't want to take the chance.
That's right. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, Keith, can I just ask you a question on that?
Yeah.
Do you think that's that particular batch of those bulkhead connectors, or is that the standard way they're made? I'm just wondering if all the manufacturers make them in the same way.
Well, the old style is not a problem because they actually, the pin is somehow fixed in the plastic, and the plastic is fixed to the outer shell.
Yeah.
But it's the newer ones, the ones that have the where you actually clamp onto the out of the coax, and you don't actually solder the inner braid. They really, you just don't know. And I've found one manufacturer on one of the popular websites where they're okay, but a lot of the others aren't.
I actually have one here on my desk, Keith. Although this one's, I think they call this a solder bucket. And I'm the pliers here, but it's solid. That's absolutely solid, this one. So that's good.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, definitely worth looking out for. Thanks for that, Keith. Right, anyone else with a question or comment to Colin? I'm sure we've got people busting to ask something, so don't be shy, everybody. Yes, Steve out there in America. Good to see you, Steve.
Oh, well, good to see everyone this afternoon, this evening, I guess, where you are. I just wanted to thank Colin for that presentation and for giving me a great idea for what to do with all these old fly reels I found cleaning out the garage the other day. Thank you for that. So I look forward to it and appreciate the presentation. I learned a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, Colin, Steve's also a great outdoors person, enjoys a lot of fishing out there, and got some lovely countryside around him to do it in. But yeah, I mean, I think you're quite right, Colin. Trying to look for things that have been produced for another hobby and using them on amateur radio is always an excellent idea. So you've got tent poles, you've got the fishing reels, and no doubt one or two other bits as well that are probably produced for other hobbies that are using kites, and sailing, of course, for some of the bits.
Yes, yes. I mean, anything. I mean, anything that's industrial is typically inexpensive because it's mass produced for a market, and there's a lot of competition. But I think I was kind of lucky with those reels because typically fly fishing reels you could be even for a cheap fly reel you're 30, 40 pounds, you know. So I think they weren't expensive. Got me a tenner or something, but they still sell them. Glasgow Angling Centre makes them. It's their own brand. Um, but I do have I do have a bill of materials for most things. I've got a bill of material for a Just Wave. It's not maybe not 100% now, a few years old, but I've got that. So if anyone wants that through the club, you can email me and I can forward that on. And anyone wants to look for any parts.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks very much. I was going to ask you about that, Colin. So, yeah, what Colin was just saying, just to repeat for club members there, if anyone here is interested, just drop me an email and I'll get Colin to send that across. That will be very helpful. Right. Anyone else with a comment or question to Colin? Come on, let's go over to Ken, G4VZV. You've been sitting there quietly. I'll take Keith first and then we'll go to Ken. Go on, Keith.
Yeah, good evening, Colin, and thanks for the talk. Very interesting. I'm just going to add that I found your video on the how to receive QO100 a few days ago, and I'm just waiting for the box to come. But I've got all the other bits like you had, so I'm looking forward to a nice, simple construction. Thanks for the video.
Well, I'll take the thanks, but that was for someone else, I think, Keith. I don't know who that was. Who was that? But it wasn't me anyway. QO100.
No,
No, it wasn't me. But I'll take it.
I stand corrected.
All right, it's okay.
Okay, yeah, Ken.
Right, okay. Well, just to you, Colin, fantastic presentation. I just sat back and you're a man to my heart when it comes to antennas. You know that. We've had many a contacts. That's for sure. Yeah, just want to comment on how good it was. That was a really good presentation, and I think you've hit a subject there that's very close to everyone on this in this radio club. We're all mad on antennas, including myself, as you know. But thank you very much, Colin, and I look forward to working you again very soon.
Yeah, no, that was it. Appreciate that, Ken. No, that was great. As I say, I'm not as lucky to get to scoop up the DX that you get, but certainly when it does come up this far north, I do enjoy it. It's nice to get it when it does favour us.
Yeah. I think.
Sorry,
I think out of all the antennas that you've made, the one that really has I've appreciated a lot is when I did see Rachel's Adjusty Wave. I just thought, what made you think of shortening that quarter wave and linear loading it? Well, I mean, linear loading is linear loading, but the way that you put it together is just tremendous. So well done, mate.
Yeah, it didn't happen overnight, Ken, but it was a lot of frustration. But and that's it. It was sometimes you're forced down these avenues. I think that's what it was. Sometimes you've got no choice but to say, what can I do to do it a different way.
Okay, cheers.
Yeah, from our watchers on YouTube, Colin, we've got Ham Radio Online. That's M0GQC.
James, that's James. Yeah.
Yeah. He just says, do you use the coax braid as the counterpoise on your end feds, or do you use a separate counterpoise and choke the coax?
Usually I use a choke, about 5% back, so 0.05 of a wavelength back, and normally I choke it off there. Sometimes I use a counterpoise on that, but sometimes I just choke it off that little bit back. I do notice that if the end fed does need something to work against. If you choke it, I actually done this experiment. So I done just an SWR sweep. Looked at both parameters X and Z. And if you just check it with no choke connected, so I think I'd maybe 10 meters of coax connected. and then I connected a choke right at the feed point. It completely changed the resonance of where that antenna was. But if I then put the choke in 5% back of a wavelength, it was like it was before. It was like I had no choke. So that told me that if you put a choke right at the feed point of an end-fed half wave, it certainly I didn't see that as a good thing. Maybe I'm looking at that wrong. But whether it had no choke on it, or had a choke on it 5% back, there was no difference to the SWR sweep. But if you put the choke right at the feed point, there was a difference. But I've used it. I've used them with and without counterpoises. But certainly when I run that QRO version there, I made sure that was well choked, and I had a counterpoise with that for sure because I knew I was going to be running a bit of power.
Okay, thanks, Colin. Anyone else in the room with a question or comment too? Yeah, go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. Fascinating presentation. I'm particularly interested in your two phased verticals you've done. Was that for 40 meters?
I've done them for 40 meters, and I've also done them for 20. I done it more for 20 than I did for 40, just purely because of the space at my garden. I need to go, ideally, I need to go somewhere else, parents or something, to get a little bit more space for 40. But as I say, so I found a design. I don't have ON4UN slow band DXing book. It's one I need to buy. It went out of print after he sadly went silent key, but I think they've started printing it again. But he had a design in that book that I seen mentioned somewhere on the internet. I only seen one mention of it. But instead of using the typical quarter wave spacing, he went with eighth wave spacing. And you then needed to use different feed lines. So I think on the traditional one, I think it's 84 and 71 is the two coax lines. I could be wrong on that. But on the eighth wave, you use 157 degrees for the feed lines, and you use 39 degree for the delay lines. So because you need to change the lines, obviously, because you've changed the spacing. So there's very little compromise. So when you have it quarter wave spaced and you have it switched broadside, so if you short out the delay, you get more of a dipole pattern. With the eighth wave spacing, it's more omnidirectional, which I really don't care about because I want to see the end fire on it, and you still see the wonderful 30 dB front to back with it. But with any sort of phased array, four squares, everything just has to be just absolutely perfect. Your coax has to be absolutely perfect. Both antennas need to be identical, tuned absolutely identical for resonance. X equals 0, which I think some people make the mistake when they just look to see where the SWR is. But the whole idea of making these little PCBs is where the SO239s are going to connect into. These are on a 25mm 1-inch pitch, so they're so close together. And the idea is that when I connect up my coax, I'm not then adding on extra length inside on the PCB, which I know definitely affected on my last one because I had wires between those automotive relays. And there's a really simple, this is a little PCB. Again, I've upgraded it with some advice for doing the switching. And I'm going to use a piece of what you call it, Cat5 or Cat6 cable to do the switching. So and put a couple of RJ45 sockets on them. So then it's really cheap to do. Or about as cheap as you can do it.
Yeah, so I run I've got 40-meter phase verticals and the 80-meter phase verticals using spider poles here. I'm using those, but I just I want sort of. I'm very pleased with them. I mean, everything you've said about the front to back is amazing, and especially this time of year now. I mean, you know, when I've got mine set sort of east-west configuration, and it was an S9 stateside station. That's if it's certain days, it'll take it right down. You know, if you switch to the east. But the thing was, on the 40-meter phase verticals, I used 4 elevated radials on each pole. Are you using? I didn't see from that picture.
No, I've only used them ground because just ground mounted, just purely because of my location, and I just can't get up the full length radials. But it would, if I had the space, yes, I would always have the preference for full size raised for verticals. Absolutely, definitely, Phil.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just using some guy in Spain I spoke to on 6 meters a few years ago now, and he said, "Oh, I just use a single delay line and then 2 equal lengths of coax feeding them, obviously to your relay. I use a coax relay at the top of the garden."
Yeah.
The thing is to get, you've just said, both lengths of coax, including the lengths of, say, your 259s or whatever you're using on there, have to be absolutely identical, as you say.
Yeah.
And having done that, and then obviously cutting your delay line, the velocity factor, and what frequency you want to be on, it was a very simple setup, and then just switching between the two. I haven't got broadside, I just switched one relay just to give it a east-west configuration, but works very well. Yeah, but you're using this Christian method, are you?
Yeah, Chrisman method.
Yes, yes.
So I mean these depend on what I pay, what shipping cost. These will be like these little boards will be £1 or something each. That'll cost me. So okay, I'll minimum order. I'll probably buy 10 or something because I think people will, and I'll just share the cost with people because I think people have already said to me that like a couple of these PCBs. But really simple. It'll just go into a little aluminium box. It's there's really not a lot to it. But I just wanted to kind of reduce obviously the space, just what you talked about there. And I've actually I recut my 40-meter lines, just coax lines, just a few weeks ago there, and they're all within. So I did, obviously you want to check them at a check frequency, so you want to see where they're 90 degrees because then you can trim them when they're open, and they're all within. So on 40 meters, I think they're within 8 kilohertz between the delay and the 2 feed lines, and you're not going to get any better than that, I think. So close enough, and that's where the PL259's fitted as well.
Yeah, I find it fascinating. I mean, phase verticals to me I've spent a lot of time researching it. I'm still learning every day. I mean, but I can't profess to have got it all right yet. But there's certainly a lot of work involved, especially radial laying. But for the 80-meter ones, it has. You can never have too many radials down, really. But it's they do work extremely well.
And what I would say, absolutely. And I think the thing with them is it's not an. You can use it portable, and I know people that use them for like contests and stuff, but it's one of these antennas that you really need to put up and you need to leave it for a long time and actually use it, because how many of us actually put up an antenna and then we think it's not working or it's not doing something right. But the good thing with phase verticals is, and you can actually answer this question, Phil, but what I noticed with the limited testing that I've done so far is that the front to back can vary. It's not always the same. And I got confused on that, thinking I'd done something wrong. And depending on, as much as I know, depending on the angle of the signal coming in, can actually have a drastic effect on the front to back. So it'd be good to understand or your opinion on that, Phil.
Yeah, it's true, because as I've just said earlier, with the propagation now, we're getting the lower angle of radiation coming in on the LF bands. Now, if you were to do the exercise in the summer months, you think, oh, this thing's not working. It's I'm not getting any front to back, and and I when I come to test them, sort of about September time, I'm aware of this now. That don't be thinking, oh, it's not working properly. And each morning when I do test them now, I mean, as I've said to you, when I'm working the States, you can get that much front to back on it. Following day, it may be not so good, just depending on how the signals are coming in. But yeah, good point.
But that's I'm glad. Yeah, no, I'm good to get, because you've got a lot of time in the chair with it, so that's good to hear.
Yeah.
But no.
Thanks anyway. Fascinating.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Nick.
Oh, thanks, Colin. Thanks for questions there, Phil. On the YouTube channel, Stu, Station Master Pro G5STU, just says, Colin, if you could have one HF rig, no budget limit, what would it be?
That's a hard one. I mean, I've got a soft spot for Kenwood. I must admit. If I could only have one rig, it might be an 890. I don't know. It's a hard one to say, but I'm going to say an 890, just because I love Kenwoods.
There you go, Colin. Question put, question answered. Right. Anyone else on here want a question to or comment to Colin while we've still got him?
Well, Nick, it's not so much a question, but it was something that I was going to mention to to Colin, but also to Phil about his verticals. And that is, I know that when you've got the antipodal hop, so for the UK, you're looking at ZL, for example, or VK5 a lot, that especially in the winter months, instead of having a multi-hop on the long path, you get something called the caudal hop. You can read about this on the internet, and it's where instead of the signal being attenuated on multi-hop, you get less attenuation, and you can pick up a lot of DX very loud on what would be normally a very quiet band. And a good example of that is on 40 meters, and especially with verticals, because of the angle that the signal's coming in at. But that is the name of it. It's actually called caudal hop, but it's only specific to the antipodes. And like I said, I think for the UK, that's like ZL area. So you can probably pull ZLs out very loud, whereas you can't pull many VKs. It's worth reading up about that, which is a little bit. I'm not just going to very briefly mention this, but on 40 meters in the evening time, I hear a lot of DX coming through quite loud. And I think that's what it's down to. And it's usually ZL or VK5 or JA, where others just can't hear it. I'm just quite surprised. But just a point I just thought of mentioning.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. Right. Anyone else got any comments or questions to put to Colin there? I mean, Colin, what you've done tonight, as I knew you would do, is inspire people now to go and have a think about one or two of your comments. We had a discussion a few months ago about the hex beam, and one of our members in the room here was making the point, when I measured it all out, I really discovered I haven't got the space for a 20 up hex beam. But as you quite rightly said, if you built one just for a limited number of bands, 15 up or even 12 up, so you've got 12 and 10, you know, the space that the beam is taking is actually quite small, and most of us could get away with that, even as you do, you know, putting it up on a pole occasionally and then taking it down.
Yeah, even I mean, because I've not rebuilt the next one, I've already made the center post, so I'm kind of have to build it for the lowest band being 15. But the next one I would actually build for 17, because even just the jump, the biggest jump is from 17 to 20. So that reduces the biggest percentage of it. So what I would say is, because 17 is an outstanding band, and then you know 17 is a truly worldwide band. I mean, Brian down in ZL3 XDJ, he won't go in 17 because he gets too many pileups. He's told me that. He goes on there and it's just wall to wall. And I've worked him a number of times on 40, a couple of times on 40, quite a few times on 20. But 17 is one of the band that he says it's almost too easy for him. So it's a great worldwide band as 17.
I agree with you, and 12 is as well when it opens up. Is also a great band. Yeah, I mean the higher bands are definitely, and as you said, and you were making that point about the Moxon. You know, if you built yourself a Moxon for say 10 and 6, that's not that big an antenna.
No.
And then you've got two really good bands, you know, for summer and winter there, really.
Yeah, I mean, if I put up the Moxon on a Sunday afternoon, this time of the year, I'm gonna work a lot of North American DX in the afternoon, and you're almost guaranteed to do it. Now the 66-foot doublet I've got here, which is a great antenna, but its pattern's going to be all over the place on 10, and I've done A/B comparisons it could be anywhere between 2 and 4 S points down on the Moxon. So you know, it's worthwhile doing, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. Yeah, just on the chat here, M0XYF is in the Zoom room here. Thanks to Colin. Watched all your antenna builds and enjoyed them a lot. I think. Well, sorry, it's just gone off. I was just going to bring it back up. And have you seen seen his comment there?
Yep.
Colin. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks very much.
Yeah, he's got able to get a lot of the other parts. But yeah, that's what it's all about. Because I know what it was like when I was starting out, and I was a lot greener. You know, where do you actually get a lot of parts from? And you end up spending a lot of money trying things and getting nowhere. So it's nice if people take the gamble knowing that what they're going to do is going to work, you know, so they're more likely to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also, when you were building your adjusted wave, it hadn't occurred to me when you first said the wire you use, and then as soon as you made that point you made about you just can't use insulated wire because you end up building a massive coil at the bottom of it because it's and as soon as you realise that, and that would never have occurred to me either, because I was thinking, well, why wouldn't you use insulated wire? You know, surely that would be more convenient in many ways. But I completely understood the point you're making there.
Yeah, but it's as I say, I fretted over it, and I'm not going to say it's the best wire because it's not. I would use copper if I absolutely could, but it works really well, and I think the average Joe is really not going to notice any difference with it. Honestly, I think for what I did, and certainly from the modeling, I think there was 0.4 of a dB in it. It's not worth worrying about.
Yeah, absolutely right. Okay, well, yes, go on, Robin, up there in Scotland.
Thanks, Colin, for your talk. Really interesting. Just on the stainless steel wire, I used copper for a long time, and right up here in the pointy bit of Scotland, it would last all right, but then break and disappear. So I went on to marine grade stainless, and it's been up for years, and I never have to touch it. And it withstands the teeth of our wind up here. No problems at all. Works really well. And I've still got a lump of it on a reel, and it didn't actually cost that much. But the fact that you can put it up and just and it just stays there, and you don't look out in the morning and see a bit of it waving around. Or we spent a long time, Gail and myself, we lost a bit. And because it's farmland, and you worry because this piece of copper wire had gone somewhere, and neighbour's sheep, you know, I've seen it in my own farming. You know, you find an animal with a really badly, almost severed foot, with this kind of wire around it, and it's trailed it around. And we hunted and hunted. We never found the bit of wire. I just assume it went into the sea. But we were really worried about it.
No, for sure.
The stainless, it doesn't break, it doesn't rust, and it just stays up there. So
that's good.
With copper from a boy, and very glad it changed onto stainless anyway. Thank
you. It can be. I mean, it can be a little bit difficult to work with at the end, and just how you terminate it. You just have to think about it a little bit different on how you do that. But it's not a problem. You just have to, you know, it's easy to work with.
You get the, again, marine grade. You get the little figure of 8 clamps. And you just make your loop and tighten the wee nuts, and they don't rust.
No,
you know, they don't disintegrate. You know, you got to watch, because you get stuff that says it's stainless steel. It's not very good, and within no time your clamps have rotted away up here or whatever. But as well as the wire, I got the little figure of 8 clamps, and you just pop the wire through it, make your loop, clamp, do up the two wee nuts, never moves.
No, that's it. Yeah, I think you just use a trusted supplier. Use a proper marine supplier, and because they're not going to sell the wrong thing.
No, I tend not to go. I tend not to go near amateur radio supply companies, you know, because as you say, if you look around, it's like insulators. You go to the agricultural merchant and get a nice bag of the lovely big plastic electric fence insulators, and they last forever. And you're not, as you say, you're not spending a lot of money, which I think, unfortunately, people starting out don't realize and go off and buy stuff.
Yeah,
and
no,
then
so
find it's not very good.
that's a great point. And also the electric fence stakes, you know, the poles, they're great as well, and they're dirt cheap. They're absolutely they're pennies, because you need a lot of them, let's say, in the farming world, and absolutely pennies for you. And those are great for amateur radio as well. They've got their uses too. Absolutely.
Yep. But there we go. Thanks very much for your talk.
No, thank you.
Good stuff.
Yeah, thank you, Robin. And Colin, I've got one more on YouTube, and it's from Darren MM0OPX. He says, Colin, on the QRO NFED, have you compared the difference between the unum being high up and the antenna being level, versus low to the ground and sloping upwards? And also, what wire are you using?
Short answer is no, because where I've been using it, I've only been able to use it in a vertical, and I've only used it on 20. I think I've used it on 20 and 40. I think it was like almost like an inverted L, but I've just used it vertical. And the wire, so the wire that was on that was a just wave wire, so that was stainless steel wire that I had on that. If I'm using copper wire, typically what I use is cheap 0.775 millimeter electrical, I think they call it tri-rated cable. You can buy, it's went up a little bit since COVID and just the state of the world, but I was getting 100 meters of that copper wire for about £12, something like that. I think it's a little bit more than that, maybe 14 or 16. But that's typically what I use. If I'm using copper, it's just cheap PVC, as long as it's not for structural or anything for strength. And I find that you know, I think it's like 7 strand or something, and it's fine even for QRO. It'll take my ACOM, and that's typically what I do. I kind of design things that it'll take the ACOM, and if it could handle that, it'll be good for anything.
Yeah, thanks for that. And Tim, our friend Tim, G5TM's just popped up as well. And a shout out actually to guys on YouTube and also for our club members. If you look out, well, obviously we know Tim G5TM because he's come and spoken at the club here. So thanks for popping in on the YouTube channel tonight, Tim, and saying hello to Colin, but also to Darren M0DCX. For anyone's not listened or watched his YouTube channel, he runs his live stream when he's on the radio on YouTube, and also to Stu, Station Master, and also to Ham Radio Online as well. So thank you for your company tonight, Colin.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Right, any further questions or comments to Colin? If not, can we first of all show our appreciation to Colin usual way? Thank you very much, Colin. Really, really good presentation. Thanks. And Colin, we really enjoyed that. I enjoyed it, and I knew from the conversation that you and I had a couple of weeks ago that you had, you know, some fabulous content in there and some fabulous ideas that I know we've got various people in the room here are going to take off with them and have a play and no doubt come back. So your offer to supply the detailed information if people are struggling to find some of the bits is very good. Yeah. I've got a question about, you know, your 200mm aluminium disc. Can you remember what size the width of the disc was?
Oh, I think it's 3mm,
3mm, yeah,
or eighth. I think I can't remember what the standard size is.
Yeah, 3mm is about 10 quid, isn't it? For one of those discs.
Yes, yeah. yes. It's normally most of the cost is on the postage. So if you can buy 2, which is normally what I do, it ends up being 12 quid or something, you know. So yeah, that's right.
Lovely. Well, Colin, thank you very much indeed. Very enjoyable evening, and I hope people, you know, will, if they haven't discovered you on YouTube, I know Howard said he was going to go and look for you on YouTube. You know, do go and have a look at Colin's site on YouTube, and also our friends that have joined us on YouTube channel tonight. Do go and look them up, because I think we've got Colin. You're one of a little group of people, but your antenna one is a particular speciality that appeals to our club. But I think it's just a wonderful way of getting out ideas and information to people like we've got in the room here, us radio amateurs who spend our time playing with this stuff at home and looking for inspiration. And yeah, there are magazines and stuff around, but actually nothing beats, as you've done tonight, Colin, just talking through something on air, which really helps.
Yeah, I do. I like helping. I do try that because I know what it was like when I went through it. But there's as I say, there's a common theme through all my stuff. I mean, I think every one of those antennas tonight basically uses some commonality between all of them, and it certainly helps keep the costs down. That's for sure.
Yeah, and also we've just also had a GT Retro World as well, who've got a lively YouTube channel just pop up as well. So they've been watching as well, and just saying hello to you, Colin.
Thanks. Good stuff.
Right.
No,
well, thank you very
again.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm going to say good evening to our viewers on YouTube tonight. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully I'll help encourage one or two of our members to go and look at your YouTube sites, those of you that have joined us there. And thank you to those that catch up with this video later in the week when this goes up on YouTube from the club. So thank you very much indeed. And on that, I'm going to stop recording, and also cut off YouTube as well. So thanks very much, guys. Hope you enjoyed it.